Alrighty, hello and welcome everyone again. Thank you so much for joining our September Demand Trends webinar. I am excited to be here with Bob Atkins, our founder and CEO, who's going to be walking us through today's data. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the latest trends across enrollment, job postings, and Google search data to see where student demand may be rising, where it's cooling, and where new opportunities may be emerging. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we will email the slides as well as the recording to all registrants afterwards. Please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen for any questions as they may come to you. And as we're all getting started, feel free to take a moment in the chat and introduce yourself and your interest and your institution so we can all connect. Bob, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you very much, Reagan, and welcome everyone. I'm Bob Atkins. I'm the founder here at Gray, and delighted to be with all of you this afternoon. In the midst of all this stuff going on in the world, we have good news, which I'm delighted to share with you as we move through the presentation. You'll see there are a number of bright spots here. So, as I say, despite all the events in the world, I think higher ed, from an enrollment standpoint, is still in pretty good shape, with one huge exception, which we'll get to. So, first, let me just take a moment and essentially introduce Gray and what a program evaluation system is. Everything you're going to see today comes out of a program evaluation system. And as I say, I'll share with you what that is. Then we'll talk about student demand along a number of dimensions, employment, and finally, I'm going to summarize and also introduce some new concepts that we have to you. So, what is an academic program evaluation system? Well, it starts with your mission to make sure programs are aligned with the mission of the institution. And that's really all programs need to do to justify their existence. Second, it accommodates the academic quality of the program. Do people graduate? Do they pass the relevant exams? And so forth. Then we have markets, and this is where we'll focus our attention today. Are there jobs for graduates? They earn a reasonable wage. Is there student demand for the program? And how intense is the competition? All of those things drive margins. And, you might ask, why do we care about financial margins? We're not a for-profit. And you're not in most cases. But margin drives mission, or as one of my colleagues used to say, no margin, no mission. That's an overstatement, but you do need enough high margin programs in your portfolio to support the programs that are smaller and unlikely to be able to support themselves and stand on their own 2 feet. And if those small programs are really important to the mission, you need somewhere margins from someplace else to fund them. So that's why we look at margins. But the data is not really sufficient to inform a program evaluation process. You have to engage the right people in the process. You have to give them this information. You have to give them and create an environment in which they can evaluate the information, interact with each other, share ideas, kick this stuff around, but do that in an efficient way. We usually use workshops for that. So at the end of 2 days, your decisions are largely made. And the program evaluation process doesn't drag on for months or years. And finally, manage. It is very important that people manage their academic programs on an ongoing basis. Oftentimes, this is viewed as more of an event. We did program evaluation 2 years ago, so we're good for another couple of years. Well, that might have been true 10, 20 years ago. It's really not true now. Things are moving too fast. As you'll see in some of the data, programs that might have been very attractive a few years ago aren't anymore. And you need to be aware of that, adjusting section sizes, deciding which programs may have outlived their shelf life on an ongoing basis in order to keep your program portfolio healthy. I should, going back to that for a second, it's not just about what to cut. Where you see the greatest benefit from understanding markets and having data that's current and correct is actually in growth, because the growth trends in higher ed by program do come and go. But if you're on top of them, you can ride that wave, and yeah, it'll pass, but seldom, it doesn't really pass where, the program goes from 100 to 0. It builds from 80, 90 to 100. And generally speaking, it's going to sit there after that. Its growth may be past, but that doesn't mean it's not a good program. It very well might be. but you want to be able to identify those growth opportunities and catch them before everybody else does. Now, let's talk a little bit about how to understand growth. And we're going to start with Google Keywords, but there are a number of other student demand indicators that we'll touch on as well. So first, how to read these charts. 2023 is shown in the dark blue bars. Data from 2024 is in the medium blue, and 2025 is the light blue. And as we see here, what we're hoping for is those bars rise from left to right, and that means things have been growing over that time period. What's actually happened is good news. In this month, we're up 8% year over year, good, healthy growth rate. But if we look back from January through May, Google search volumes are growing 24%. And if we look at the more current period, it's up 1.4%. And I'm very glad to see that 8% in the most recent month, because we actually had a decline in July. So it's nice to see it's bouncing back. But the growth seems to be slowing a little bit year over year. Now, we need to keep in mind that Google's changing really fast right now. It might have an impact on these numbers. The whole advent of AI is changing the pay-per-click model that some of this data relies on. So that could be one of the things that's going on here as people shift their behaviors more into AI-based search, a little bit less on traditional click search. So that may be influencing the numbers. But in any case, even with those adjustments, things are going up, and it appears that the growth is returning to pretty healthy levels at 8%. This is a leading indicator too. So people search for a program before they enroll in it. So we're seeing what people are interested in now, but are probably going to enroll in 3 to 6 months from now. And the actual lag, or the amount of lead time that it generates, varies by program or by degree level primarily. So at the associate level or the certificate level, that might only be a month or two between when they start searching and they actually make up their mind. By the time to get to the doctoral level, you could be looking at 18 to 24 months for somebody who's thinking about a doctorate before they actually go. So what's hot? Cybersecurity. This has been hot for years now, and I keep waiting for the growth to subside, but it didn't last month. Up almost 500,000 searches. We can see tech-related took 2 slots here, web digital media being the second one, up over 150,000. Then we have a couple of education programs that did very well. Education General and school counseling guidance services also did well. And then we have just a bunch of other stuff. Aviation, aerospace, 3D modeling, economics, which we group together quantitative economics and econometrics into that, because the reason we do that is schools fairly randomly assign their econ programs to any one of those 3. So the data for any one of the programs is skewed by that reporting. So we group them together. Fashion, apparel, and design at 58. We have a couple of health programs that make it at this level. Diagnostic medical sonography or ultrasound tech, and nursing practice. So good month for tech-related items, cybersecurity being the leader by far in terms of growth in Google search volume. Now, then we're going to talk briefly about cost and cost per click. What I see here is that programs where the online guys are big, and in particular for-profits are big, they bid these prices way up. So medical billing and coding has been an important for-profit education institution program forever. And it's up to almost over $46 a click. So what does that mean? You've got to understand what it costs to get a student. You need to think about how many clicks are going to happen before one student actually enrolls in the school. And at a conservative level, it's 100. So clicks per actual student enrolled. So this is not $46 to acquire a student using the pay-per-click. It's $4,600 to acquire a student. So keep that in mind as you look at these numbers. They may not look very high, but by the time you get done getting a student, they're pretty high. Health also, you can see, dominates here. And again, that's partly because of who competes for these terms. We have social work, speech pathology, all well over $40. Psychology, about 40. Healthcare administration and management, now we're getting down to, I would say, more reasonable levels, still very expensive at 33, and pediatric nursing at 32. Then we have a couple of criminology programs there, criminalistics and criminal science at $41, and criminal justice at $34. And finally, 2 education programs, middle school teaching and nursing education, both around $35 a click. Now let's shift over to some better news on enrollment. We're looking here at certificates and associates, and new enrollment in community colleges increased 3% year over year. And boy, you look back, I've been doing these webinars now a long time, and it was many years of talking about declining enrollment in community colleges, which peaked during COVID. Peaked is a funny word to use for the maximum decline. But you can see if we go back to 2019, 2020, enrollment in community colleges was declining at double-digit rates and had been for quite some time. In 2021, it started to flatten out and then began recovering and has been ever since. Notice we still haven't gotten to 2019, 2020 levels. We have 2.1 million students enrolled, and we had slightly more than that back in 2019, 2020. But the trend is in the right direction. For all of you coming from community colleges, when I talk to people out there, I definitely hear this, that the classrooms are finally getting full again and that the enrollment trends are solid. Bachelor's continues to be mixed. We're getting a little better there for a few years, 21 through 23, 24. Then we dropped actually 24, 25 by 2%. So that's been flat to down for quite some time now. At the graduate level, things are picking back up again. We are up 3.9 last year. We're up 2.8 again in 24, 25. So some good growth happening at the graduate level. We're almost back to peak at 2020-21 as well at about 1.4 million. If this trend continues, we'll get back to full, if you will, the prior high in just another year. Now, what's growing within that? And we bring up these top 10 programs, and there's a very important note here. And when it comes to growth, a few programs account for a lot of the growth. So in 24-25, there are about 1,100 associates programs. Of those, 550 grew. They added 1 or more students enrolled. But 10 programs accounted for 41% of the growth. So if you're not in one of the 10, it's going to be much more difficult for you to grow. And that means you obviously self-serving, but you need a system that can tell you what those growth opportunities are so you can take advantage of them in a timely way. Health dominates the list here at the associates level. We've got 6 programs that grew. In the top 10 are health programs led by Allied Health, RadTech, Registered Nursing, Nursing Assistant Patient Care Aid, Diagnostic Medical Sonography, again, that ultrasound tech, and finally, Clinical Assistant Medical Health Management. That's the longest agglomeration of stuff I've seen in a while there. Medical Health Specialist. So in addition to that, we have a couple of traditional career technical programs, HVAC, electrician, and then finally bookkeeping, all of which did very well last year in terms of enrollment, up almost 3,000 or more. So those are the 10 that account for a very substantial chunk, 41% of all growth at the associate level. At the bachelor's level, we had 533 programs that grew. Again, here we see the growth pretty concentrated. 10 of those 533 programs accounted for 37% of growth. One of those did very well. Finance grew by 4,261 students. We have a couple of other business programs that did well, accounting and business analytics. 2 health programs, a little surprised to see how few health programs actually, but registered nursing, almost always a growth program, up 3,700, and health services, allied health, up 2,900. Then STEM comes in, and we got some STEM programs that made the list. Mechanical engineering is popular, up almost 2,900. Accounting, up 2,700. Business analytics, up 1,500. And we have a couple of other programs, elementary education and political science, that make our top 10. Now, at the master's and doctoral level, again, 10 programs, about 29% of growth. So pretty concentrated, actually not quite as concentrated as the other 2. but still most of the growth is happening in a handful of programs. We've got business and finance with 3 slots on this list. Business analytics adding 3,700 students. Economics up 1,200, and financial analytics up about 1,200 as well. Tech programs, data analytics up 3,000, and artificial intelligence up almost 1,500. A little surprised that this didn't crop up on any of our earlier lists. I would have thought AI would be a pretty popular Google search topic, and potentially a program at other degree levels, but I guess the answer is not yet. Other programs that made our list, not surprisingly, medicine and law, both up around 1,400 students. Now, here's the bad news. International. At international page views is what we track, which again is a leading indicator of what's going to happen going forward. This is folks overseas who click into a web page and indicate what programs they're interested in and where they want to go to college. And here we're seeing the people who want to come to college or exploring coming to college in the United States. Overall, those page views are down 57%. And if we go backwards, we can see it was kind of okay in January, February, March. It began to get a little bit weak in March. Then it started to fall out of bed in April. And fortunately, it looks to me like it's starting to flatten out around 200,000 page views. At least I hope that's what's happening, and this decline isn't going to get any worse. So the decline wasn't evenly spread by degree level. We have 64% drop in master's degree seekers, 39% drop in doctoral, and 27% drop at the bachelor's level. Now, let's keep in mind, all of these numbers were before the announcement of the $100,000 fee for an H-1B visa. And many of the folks who are coming to the US are coming here to try and work here indefinitely. And their hope is when they come off their student visas, the OPT, that they'll be able to transition into an H-1B. And I think that pretty much just ended. I'm not, this trend looked good in August. I'm suspicious that in September, October, it's going to drop even further because of the H-1B situation. Where are people interested in coming from? Bangladesh leads the list. I'm always a little surprised by this list, honestly. There's just a bunch of countries on here that I wouldn't have thought were as, large or as interested in coming to the US as they are. Ghana, for example, with 8,900 page views. And Nepal always surprises me with 5,700 page views. We can see Germany is actually in the top 10, but Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan very much leading the list. And China's on here for the first time. This data set didn't include China previously, but now does. I'm a little skeptical if that's a full count of what's going on in China, because I know the folks who give this data to us may have difficulty in getting past the Great Firewall. So keep in mind that might well be understated. Now, when we're trying to understand what's cutting edge, what do students want this minute that might not be a common thing in higher ed yet, we look at Coursera, because in Coursera, we can see by course. Well, first of all, people add courses to Coursera all the time. The barrier to adding a course is very low. So you tend to see cutting edge courses hit here before they are much of any place else. And so that's why, again, we look at Coursera. It's a leading demand indicator, if you will. And what's hot? Data's hot. If you look at tech and data, it takes 5 out of the top 10 slots. Now, it's a little bit of a function of who Coursera is. They've always had a tech focus, not as extreme as Udemy, but still, that's a focus. So some of this is just what they choose to offer, what the colleges choose to offer through Coursera. But nonetheless, there's a trend here. And you can see that data is a very popular topic, whether it's data everywhere, tech support fundamentals, foundations of, I should have said tech and data, introduction to data analytics, rounding out with about 30,000 people enrolled last month. And again, this is the other thing about this is just unbelievable. These are monthly numbers of people enrolled. So some of these people are enrolling more students in a month than the rest of us enroll in 5 or 10 years. Now, they don't stick around. These are not full-time students. So most of these people are going to come in, take a couple of classes, and then drop the course. But nonetheless, it's staggering volumes. Then we have AI-specific courses, AI for everyone, and Introduction to Artificial Intelligence. So what I would say is a lot of interest in the basics of AI here out there in the world. And I don't know how fast you can ramp those courses up, but they're very, very popular. And finally, we have some other areas that people are interested in particular around project management, project execution, running the project initiation, starting a successful project, both of them close to 30,000 new students enrolled. And one thing that I found I've been tracking for a while is the science of well-being. This used to be number 1 or number 2 every month, about 18 months ago, and it's dropped substantially. So either students have learned to be happy without this, or they're just getting on with all the other things they need to learn. But I've been a little surprised to see this dropping back. What are the skills people are seeking? Now, remember that in Coursera, they state the skills that the course teaches. So we can track those, and also students can look at them and say, does this course teaching the particular skills I'm interested in? And here you do set domination of data. The top 2 slots are held by data analysis and data visualization. Arguably, spreadsheets are another form of data, though they're used for a whole bunch of calculations as well as just data storage. Then we see SQL, structured query language. That's the standard language for large-scale database management, data cleansing and data science, and machine learning. Machine learning is a variation of AI that builds predictive models on top of data. And finally, deep learning, another version of AI, make the list. So all these heavy tech, data science, AI-oriented things are quite popular right now. And then we see project management creeping back onto our list. We've seen that before. And a surprise entry in strategic thinking. With all this tech, I'm glad to know somebody is still out there trying to think. So what's going on in the job market? Not good. This is not good news for the economy, but keep in mind it actually is good news for higher ed. In our analysis of what drives enrollment in higher ed, we went down the whole path of the demand cliff, that's coming up. Well, there is no enrollment cliff coming up, folks. You heard it here. If you've been on my webinars, I've said it before. There is about a 7% R squared between the number of people born 20 years ago, the change in the number of people born 20 years ago, and the change in enrollment. So demographics, birth rates explain about 7% of the change in enrollment, which means 93% of the change is unexplained by that simple demographic metric. There are other things that matter and have higher R squareds. One of them is the unemployment rate. As the unemployment rate goes up, people go back to college. This is not new news to any of you who've been in higher ed for more than a minute, but somehow in all the excitement about the cliff, we kind of forgot that. And I think, unfortunately, much of what's happening to the U.S. economy is not great for most folks, but might actually be good for higher ed. So this negative job posting trend is potentially a positive for colleges and universities. What is growing out there in terms of jobs? Retail sales is going up. Marketing managers also going up. And we have a couple of other sales-related jobs, sales managers and first-line supervisors of retail sales. Then we have an oddball or two here, security guards, coaches and scouts, and management analysts. It's always fun when you look at these jobs and see this list and realize how many crazy things are that people do out there in our economy. And so those are a couple of the other ones that are growing. And we have some managerial jobs. General and operations managers added almost 2,300 jobs, over 2,300 jobs. Financial managers, a little over 1,200. And first-line supervisors, just about 1,000. What skills are folks looking for? So we have gone through, I don't know, 50, 100 million job postings. And from that, we've identified skills. We've cleaned that skills list up, which, by the way, is not a small amount of work. We now keep track of about 30,000 skills. And analytics right now is top of the list with 22,000 job postings requiring analytic skills. Now, if we take tech and analytics and put them together, we've got 5 of our top 10 that fit that description. Computer science is another one, Python and cloud computing, all with 13,000 or more job postings. And then we have familiarity with emerging technologies at about 10,500 job postings. On the operation side, a lot of activity there. This is generally business operations, and we can see business operations itself with almost 20,000 job postings, 19,000. Operational excellence, 19,000. Automation, another form of process management and improvement, 17,000. Operational efficiency, 12,000. And product management, a little bit loose to include that here, but that's up about 10,000 as well. So a much more pronounced emphasis on operations and operations efficiency than I've seen in the skill data recently. So there is something going on out there for those of you who are teaching these kinds of optimization techniques and how to run a factory floor and how to run an operation efficiently. It is a good moment for those skills. So let's talk a little bit about a program of the month. And for this program, we're going to walk around the circle here, including student demand, employment, competition, and degree fit. We like to provide that data in a variety of different views. One is lots of detailed numbers about each program, a simple one-page overview, and then a much more detailed 28-page review. So let's start with the very high-level overview information. And I think this is actually really important because there are over 1,000 program choices you could make. And the question is which ones? And if you try to look at them one at a time, you'll blunt your pick long before you get to the end of the list. So you need some way to aggregate all that information, rank it, and then have that ranking tell you which programs merit more attention and a deeper dive. And here you can see we've got a total evaluation. Those numbers in there are percentiles. The percentiles compare each program against about 1,500 other programs in our system. So data analytics at the 99th percentile is one of the top 15 programs in our system. Then we break it down into a couple of categories: student demand, are students seeking this program, looking at numbers like enrollment and completions. We explore competitive intensity, how many institutions offer the program, how much does it cost to buy a click, and then employment percentile, how many jobs out there, and what wages can you expect. And finally, today, we've got degree fit percentile, but we flattened that out at neutral score of 50 because that's going to depend on which institution you are. And we have folks on the phone from all different types of institutions. So we're not weighting that at all. And now we can see which programs are naughty and which are nice. At this stage, we've sorted on total percentile, so everything looks pretty good. But you can see even a program like data analytics, which does very well overall, does great on student demand, actually does really well on employment, has a little problem with competitive intensity right now. So it does give you that ability to very quickly figure out what the potential issues are with a program, in addition to telling you whether it's generally attractive or not. Now, that allows us to go pick one. So this month, we've decided to pick Marketing Management General as a program to explore in greater depth. And now we'll dive into a little bit more intense analysis. Now, what I've got here is a program scorecard. Before, I'm going to zoom in so you can read the things. But before I do that, let me just explain how to look at this chart. All the numbers, all the individual variables have been categorized and then percentiled. So I mentioned what a percentile is. The color codes also tell you the ranking in those percentiles. So dark green is a score of 66 or higher for overall. And as we get, as those percentiles go down, it gets pink or red. And so you can quickly look at the page and say, well, dark green, that's pretty good. And down here, I got some concerns because it's going from green into the pinks and blues. So we'll come to that in a moment. But keep in mind that we've got, for each of these, a value, excuse me. We'll just use that to zoom in for a moment. We've got a value, We've got the actual item that it is, Google search volume in this case, and a percentile. So you can very quickly come in here and understand what's going on with a given metric. Now I'm going to zoom in on student demand. You can see, as we mentioned, overall, it's the 99th percentile for student demand. I've got international page views at 4,700. That's actually very good, 97th percentile. Enrollment volumes, extremely high, 99th percentile. On-ground completions at in-market institutions, 99th percentile. Online completions by in-market students. This is a very important number because it's generally not reported correctly. So when you get data from iPads about completions, all the students who are attending a university are reported at the headquarters location of that university. So students at the University of Phoenix are reported in Phoenix, which would be fine if it weren't an online institution, but it is. And approximately 95% of those students are not even in Arizona. So now we have a problem. We've reported thousands of students and completions into a market where they don't exist. And what we do is go and use NC-SARA and back those students out and put them back in the states where they belong. So online completions by in-market students are students who are in a given physical market, but studying at a school that might be located somewhere else online. So they live and work and study in Phoenix, but they're taking their program at SNHU. And as I say, in most of your labor market data and other reporting, those numbers are, and iPads itself, those numbers are very incorrect. You just imagine the city of Phoenix. You've got University of Phoenix, ASU Online, Grand Canyon, all three of them in that one city, reporting all their completions in Phoenix. So if you're an employer, you look at the data and you say, oh my God, we've got all these college graduates here, except they're not there. They're someplace else. So that is a very important adjustment that we do. And then we add it all up. And then we look at change, what's growing in units and percentages. And from there, we go over to the employment side. And this is a little weaker. You can see it's blue. It's only the 85th percentile. Now, there's some very good things here. The actual size of the job market for this marketing program is very good. 99th percentile, 400,000 people employed in that field in BLS. We do have a fair slug, though, of people who are underemployed. 41% of the people who get this degree end up in a job that doesn't really require a college degree. And that's puts it in a pretty high percentile here, 72nd percentile. So that's an unusually high number of people who are underemployed after graduation. The historical growth is here. It's actually a growing field, up 4.2%, 4.4%, BLS 3-year history. BLS projects a 10-year growth of only 4.7%, or excuse me, 0.7%. But effectively, with a couple of years of 4.4, we've already exceeded that number. And generally speaking, the BLS future growth estimate is a very weak number that I would not depend on in making your decisions. 80% of those forecasts are off by 50% or more. I can't tell you that we have a better forecast. Forecasting the U.S. economy in 700 occupations and so forth, not something that I believe is feasible to get right. It's just changing too fast. We have job postings per graduate. This is a critical number. This tells you, are there enough jobs for the people who are coming out of my classes? In this case, very much yes, 87th percentile score on that. And the pay is, I would say, good, not great, 67th percentile for entry level. And 3 years after entry, that gets to be healthier at $84,000. I shouldn't say healthier. It's actually dropping in terms of percentile. So, that's kind of a mediocre number for a college graduate 3 years after they've gone to college. The real problem here, though, is competition. And there's a lot of it. 732 schools offer this, a lot of online. Average number of program completions, though, still very healthy, 52 on average, 20 completions a year at the median, which is a better number when you're gauging how big a program might be at your institution or should be. No change. So what I watch out for here is when the year-over-year number of students completing goes down, that means that we're having trouble filling classes. But here it's flat. Google costs are pretty heavy for higher ed. You can see 7th percentile and 25th, $20 a clip. So they're not that very top group that I mentioned. It was up over 40, but still a pretty expensive cost per click. And national online, you begin to see that there's fairly intense online competition in this area. 22% of institutions offered online, and it's about 12% of total completions come from online. So that's one view of this thing. Now, some of you may say, God, please don't give me all those numbers. Can somebody just write a summary for me? And indeed, we can. And in fact, we have. Return. And we can now, in our systems, you can go in and click on this and get a one-page text summary of that program written by AI. And we're still tuning up the prompt to make this sound a little bit less like AI. But we have done a lot of work to make sure that the summary is actually accurate. So this is a good portrayal of the program in simple English for those who don't want to look at that screen and be a little bit overwhelmed by the numbers. We also realize that people want to consume this information in a much different way. So what we did was we built a report for them so that they could see in one place essentially all the data we have about this. Let me just take 1 second and bring that up for you. It's going to take me a second to dig this up. I had it just a minute ago. Oh, I apologize. Let me close that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. I'll be right back once I get this. I had it open 5 minutes ago. Does anybody else have that open on their desktop that can share it with folks?
I do.
Great. I'm going to hand off, Elaine, if you could pick up and share your screen, that'd be great.
It may not be the best view, but
Just zoom in a little bit more and we're good. So this is a program profile. And if you think about it, people want these answers quickly and they want depth at the same time. And so this profile basically allows for both those things. In about a minute, you can go in and select this and have it sent to your inbox, where it'll arrive about 5 minutes later. So it's not instantaneous, but it's pretty quick. Let's just take a look through and see what it tells you about this marketing manager program. And we're going to see some things here that are consistent with what we heard earlier about student demand, employment, and competitive intensity. Let's keep going. On the student demand side, you can see enrollment in this program is going up at a nice clip and has been for a number of years, both in fall, spring, and summer. So it's a nice growing program. Let's keep going. Fall's been good. Let's keep going. And the completion volumes, one of the first things to notice here is in all the other things we've been showing 24, 25 data, but because this is completions, it's iPads, and that data tends to be old, and this is no exception. The most current data until the day before yesterday was from 2023. The new data is out. We and lots of other people are busy trying to get all that data and update our systems with it. We should have that out in about November by the time we're done cleaning it up and posting it. But it is an intrinsic problem with iPads that it's a little stale. And now we're seeing the Google searches looking a little weak in 2025. That dark blue bar is down for the last few months after doing pretty well in March, but lagging in January, really every month other than March. So that not a great trend there. What's interesting is through May, and there's lots that's happened since May, the international demand was actually up for this program, despite that strong downward trend we saw for all the other programs. And we can see where that data came from, or excuse me, where the interest is. And notice that Vietnam made this list. So when you're thinking about trying to recruit international students, you now know not just where the students are, but you know what program they may be interested in. Very powerful lever in targeting your marketing. It doesn't tell you how to get those students a visa, which is a whole other problem. Let's keep going. On the employment side, job postings here dropping off just a little bit. We're down about 5.8% year over year. Not a disaster, but not a great trend. Let's keep going. And one of the important points is if you went to the National Center for Education Statistics, or most traditional labor market suppliers, they would tell you that these graduates can only go into 4 or 5 programs for which they've been directly prepared. That's just not true. It turns out there's no basis for that categorization besides the judgment of a handful of people who set it up, I don't know how many years ago now. And it says that right on the NCS website, that this data is not based, this crosswalk between programs and jobs is not based on empirical data. It always made me wonder, what the heck is it based on? I still don't really know, except people's judgment about what you should do with this degree. But that's just not what people do. So one of the interesting ones here is human resources specialist. Is actually one of the top 10 professions people go into with a marketing degree. PR is not surprising, but securities and commodities trading sure is. And project management specialists, you wouldn't think that they've been directly prepared for that. And then, of course, there's a bunch of folks at the top of the chart who go into management, sales, marketing, using this degree. So in this program, as in all programs, the things people really do are far more varied than you might expect. Salary trends, a little worrisome. They've been going up steadily from August a couple of years ago, and just recently in April began to come down. And moderately steep decline, but do keep in mind, this scale starts at $74,000. So changes are magnified because we're not showing it from $0, which would make all these changes look a great deal less. So yes, it's a drop. It's not quite as steep a drop as it might appear there. And then we can tell you what particular jobs, for the jobs these people go into, how much money do they make, and what do you want them to get into so they make the most? And it turns out with a marketing degree, the best thing you can do is become a financial manager. That would put you in line to make $123,000 a year, where the pure marketing pay actually is quite a bit less. Marketing managers do well at 108, but they're still almost 20% behind a financial manager. You may need to know what skills people need. That way you can be sure you're teaching the skills they'll need when they graduate in your programs. So you can see here the technical skills that are required. Almost every occupation requires Microsoft Office. So do keep that in mind. That is mandatory. And making sure folks get good training in that before they graduate is really important. Obviously, marketing is central, but project management is really important here because marketers are often managing short and long-term projects as they roll out new marketing programs. I was a little surprised to see finance on the list, but then you think about it for a minute, and most people that are in marketing actually have pretty good financial understanding so that they can create their plans and estimate the outcomes of those plans over time. Job postings, top technical skills. Let's keep going. Those are the numeric representation. Durable skills, leadership, management, customer service. Let's keep going. And again, you can see these in some more depth here, and just be able to keep track. I was a little surprised by industries. Healthcare led the list in terms of, I believe this is by total number of job postings. Education surprises me a little bit as being a top place for marketers. I would have thought something like banking would be well ahead, but not the case. Manufacturing, financial services, IT, and so forth, all good spots for somebody with a marketing degree. Which industries are growing? Now it gets born back to what I would have expected. Banking and lending tops the list in terms of growth, actually up 257% in job postings. And then you can see how it ranks down from there. Accounting, business consulting, internet and web services. This is key information for folks in your placement offices because it allows them to find hotspots for your students that might not have been big opportunities 2 years ago, but for some reason are trending at the moment.
Bob, can I interrupt you for a second for a question?
Sure.
With respect to the occupations employing marketing majors, how soon after degree completion do the completers enter these jobs? I'm wondering if they are getting additional credentials to get those jobs. That question's from Susan.
I think the answer to your question is yes. And by that, I mean, it's a bit of all those things. So some of these are jobs they get directly out in this. And then there are other jobs that they'll get with more advanced degrees. We're not displaying it here, but in our systems, you can parse that out and see, what the jobs are by degree level in our alumni database, where we actually have each degree a student has earned and what jobs they've had over time. So you can see their whole career progression. So again, not sharing it today, but it is available and it does vary a lot by major. So one of the mythologies of the liberal arts is that, in a sense, a liberal art degree is a terminal degree. In many cases, it isn't. You're going to go on history majors, 15% of them become lawyers. So you go on and get a graduate degree. I, was a history major and got an MBA. So that absolutely is a driver. And actually is one of the reasons why these criticisms of more general programs are somewhat misplaced, because people are going to specialize and get the work-related credentials a little bit later in their job search, in their education. So I think we're almost done here. The only other thing I'd like to focus on is just stop, right here, and go up one page. The other thing that's really helpful in this data is to be able to see who is hiring. So that, again, if you're in career services or if you're a student, you know which organizations to focus on. And here we can see Deloitte down a little bit, but still one of the larger employers in this field. JP Morgan Chase, Accenture, NAN. I did look up NAN. I believe it's a construction company, if you're wondering, not bread. And Wells Fargo and so forth. So again, it gives you an insight into who's hiring and who is hiring more than they did last year. Let's stop there, and I'm going to pick up the again for my presentation. So I think we should be good here in just a second. So let me sort of wrap this up. The one thing I'd like to share with you is that it's my belief that AI is going to be playing a more prominent role in higher ed, and that's really not a futures thing. That is here and now. And there's some very practical applications of AI that can be deployed as we speak. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and get a free copy of ChatGPT and put confidential information in it. Please don't. I'm not telling you that if students are using ChatGPT, that you may not have issues with them bonding with the application and ending up in a bad place psychologically as a result. Instead, I'm talking about apps that have been really deliberately built for higher education. They're secure, they're engaging, but they're not engaging to the point where people bond with them. There are limits placed on that. They're private. Your data is not going to go out into the world and train a model. They actually reflect your content as an institution, not just general knowledge of the AI. And then they have these other wonderful attributes, which is they're available 24/7. They're in dozens of languages, and they can not only speak a different language, but they can adjust the way they communicate for the individual student. So they can simplify things if that's needed, and they can be very sophisticated if that's appropriate. 3 places I see these coming right now. One is what we call a course companion, but the broader topic is AI tutors. These are ready now. And it really is an advantage to your student to be able to get this kind of one-on-one tutoring extremely cost effectively, grounded in the material of a particular course. So to me, that's a here and now app. There are several out there. Certainly we offer one, but getting these to your students, especially those students that need extra help, absolutely critical and available now. And honestly, it's not that, it seems like a big decision because it's got AI in front of it, but it's actually not. It's not that expensive. It's not technically difficult to implement. And if you don't like it, you can turn it off. It hasn't corrupted your infrastructure, required years to implement. So a second one like that is Career Companion, 24-hour-a-day career advisor with the right data embedded in the application so that the student's really going to see all the jobs that are available and all the career options they may have. And finally, the most fun one I've seen is a Communications Companion. Many times you hear employers complain that students aren't really ready to work. They're not very good communicators in particular. And here's a coach where a student can come in and practice conversations and get feedback in 10 or 12 dimensions in real time and go back and try the conversation over again until they get good at it. That could be a presentation they need to make. It could be a job interview. All sorts of things that you can build in here to make them more effective communicators. So let me summarize. In August, Google searches for academic programs rose 8% year over year. Cybersecurity in particular continues to thrive. New enrollment certificate and associate programs rose 3%. Unfortunately, bachelor's fell 2%, but master's and doctoral rose 3%. Allied health, finance, and business analytics had the highest new enrollment growth year over year. And remember that all growth at each degree level tends to be concentrated. 30 to 40% of that's going to happen in about 10 programs. In August, U.S. job postings fell a little bit, but remember that's good news for all of us. And finally, remember that people go into all sorts of occupations. In the case of economics grads, they go into 734 occupations, not the 7 we traditionally hear about in the National Center for Education Statistics. And finally, I would say speed to data is a critical issue. Old data is not useful. Data that's really hard to get is not helpful. It ties people up trying to pull it together, and all of that impedes making data-informed decisions. In an increasingly competitive and faster-moving environment, you need your data, you need it now, and you need systems that can deliver it to you accurately and in a timely way. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you joining me today, and I'm happy to take any questions. I think we've reached the end here, folks. If anybody does have a question, I'd be glad to answer it. If you think of one afterwards and you'd like to email me, please do. I'm happy to get those. And that's bob.atkins@graydi.us. Thanks, everyone.